I'm Jonathan Ferro. This is Bloomberg Real Yield. It's time now for the final spread. Coming up over the next week, we'll get interest rate decisions from around the world, including the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan. Plus, we'll be keeping an eye on any US-China trade talk and the potential for a partial US government shutdown. Still with me, Gershon Distenfeld from AllianceBernstein, Kathleen Gaffney from Eaton Vance, and Luke Hickmore from Aberdeen Standard Investments. Guys, a lot of people talking about liquidity, illiquidity, and making sure you have some liquidity. Gershon, talk me through that, about why that is so significant at this stage of the cycle.
Well, look, I think we overemphasize liquidity in the short run in general as it relates to the end investor. We talked in the previous segment about, having, continuous liquidity in ETFs versus daily liquidity. Most individual investors shouldn't have daily liquidity. It actually hurts them. But I think what's important in this part of the cycle is, professional managers that want to move their portfolio around, if there isn't the proper liquidity, it's going to be very, very difficult or very, very costly. So we have to pay attention to it.
So size matters here, Kathleen?
Size definitely matters here. Being nimble is a great advantage. When you're large, it's very difficult to make meaningful moves.
Luke Hickmore, your thoughts on this subject?
I think it depends what instruments you've got available to you. There are more liquid instruments than physical cash for sure, and size doesn't always cause you a problem when that's the case. So, it depends on the makeup on your funds and your mandate and so many different factors. We've not really suffered too much from a liquidity problem in our physical funds this year, but we've built up the amount of liquidity we have for sure.
Talking to you guys over the last 25 minutes, with the exception of leveraged loans, I have to say it's a very constructive tone about what comes out of 2019. I want to get an idea from you guys how difficult it is to manage money when I imagine a lot of clients at the moment are very, very nervous about what 2019 brings. And what you're communicating to them when you pick up the phone and start calling you, Gershon. What do you say back about next year?
Well, we point out that with the exception of trade, we were saying all the same things at the end of 2015, right? We're due for a recession, we're late in the credit cycle, the Fed's going to screw things up for us, et cetera, et cetera. And the reality is that price matters. And maybe we are closer to all those things, but we also have yields higher almost across the board, and it would take probably a recession to end up having the kinds of negative returns that we've seen in fixed income over the past 12 months.
Kathleen?
I think that's a very valid point. The fundamentals are positive, so it's going to be tough to get a systemic credit event in the market away from loans. But it does give active managers a real opportunity with specific risk. We've seen the GEs, we've seen PacGas,
yeah.
We have these specific companies that have issues, and that's where the liquidity plays into long-term investors' hands.
Luke Hickmore?
I guess you've got to be really careful here because there's not many times when credit gives you a negative return for 2 years in a row. In fact, you'd have to look really, really hard for that to happen in history.
Yeah.
And yes, event risk is going to be really important, but it's very, very hard to play it from the long side. We'd be cautious about that going into 2019 for sure.
A very sort of sensible, constructive tone from all of you. I'm going to wrap things up and get some final thoughts from you in the rapid fire round. Guys, let's get to the first question as we look ahead to the Federal Reserve decision next week. Can Powell deliver a dovish surprise? Gershon?
No.
Kathleen?
No.
Luke?
Not a surprise, no.
Here's one for you, looking ahead to next year. Can the ECB under President Mario Draghi deliver a hike before he leaves? Yes or no? Gershon?
He could, but I'll say maybe.
Kathleen?
No.
Luke?
He leaves in October, so definitely no.
I've got an idea on where you all stand on the following question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The outperformance in 2019, does it come from leveraged loans or high yield? Leveraged loans versus high yield through 19. Gershon?
Not even close. High yield could potentially have double-digit returns next year.
Really?
Yes.
Kathleen?
High yield.
Luke?
High yield for sure.
I've got an idea where the consensus is, at least, although I'm sure you won't appreciate that comment, any of you. Guys, great to catch up with you all. Gershon Distenfeld from AllianceBernstein, Kathleen Gaffney from Eaton Vance, and to Luke Hickmore from Aberdeen Standard Investments. From New York, that does it for me. This was Bloomberg Real Yield. This is Bloomberg.